Welcome back. Tonight's main news. Hospital staff and managers should face prosecution if patients are harmed as a result of poor care. That's what the Health Secretary has told this programme in response to a landmark report into the Mid-Staffordshire NHS Trust scandal. It amounts to a damning indictment of NHS attitudes and practices and has recommended sweeping changes to end the NHS's neglect of patient safety.
And let's linger on one crucial aspect of our top news story tonight. Why has the medical profession apparently abandoned its traditional compassion? Today's report and the Prime Minister's statement that followed it are full of anger at the apparent neglect of patients by doctors and especially perhaps nurses. How have things come to this, and will today's measures solve the problem? Joining me now are Julie Bailey, the founder of Cure the NHS, Davies, Executive Director of Nursing at the Royal College of Nursing, and Clywd, who was appointed today to set up a review of complaints procedures and who has also complained very bitterly about the treatment of her own husband, who died, sadly. I just wonder whether it isn't just worth responding to a number of contacts I've had by Twitter and email during the course of this programme, which has said, look, there are also wonderful swathes of the NHS which are sensationally good, and we should perhaps have that as a benchmark. But beneath that, there is this awful failure of culture. Is it a failure of culture, Clywd, that is based on the way in which the health service has been reformed, partly by your party and partly by the Conservatives, that has concentrated on targets and on finances and on patient throughput?
I think that was admitted today by the Prime Minister, that has been a problem, is a problem. I was on the Royal Commission on the NHS, which reported in 1979. We spent 3 years looking at the health service. We decided it was good value for money, and we didn't advise any further reorganisation. That was in 1979. But of course, there have been several reorganisations since. And again, I think the report today makes it clear that he didn't believe, Mr Francis did not believe in further reorganisation.
Well, now, Janet Davies, do you think reorganisation is really the villain of this piece?
No, I think it's part of it. I think it's a really complex picture. I think what Robert Francis has done is picked up that picture and shown the complexity of it. And in fact, the recommendations, there's no quick fix there. There's quite a lot. It shows how complicated the NHS is. It certainly gets in the way.
Can I just press you on your own members, nurses?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know whether you call them members, but
we do call them members,
most nurses belong to your organisation. Do you have an experience within your union, if one wants to put it that way, of nurses saying, look, I know things are not good where I'm working, but I can't get people to listen to me?
Yes, we do. And we've been looking for some time, particularly since the first Francis report. There's been a lot of soul searching amongst nurses and about ourselves, about how we support people who want to do that. We know that people who try to blow the whistle, who actually know that care is poor, often find that very difficult to do. But we do know that in the majority of cases things are good, as you pointed out, but where it isn't, it's quite a complex picture. Sometimes it's because there's a big reorganisation and people are focusing on that. But fundamentally, it's when nursing, when that patient care is not seen as the first priority of an organisation. So we see people focusing on targets, on the money, and sometimes, to balance the books, as we saw in mid-staffs, cutting the staffing numbers.
Right. But
that's what you need more.
What we seem to have seen, particularly in your mother's case and in the people who suffered so badly in the hospital she was in mid-staffs, is a lack of compassion. I mean, it seems extraordinary that somebody who goes into a caring career can neglect people the way your mother was neglected.
That's right. What we see is that the Blair and Brown government crushed the culture of care from the NHS, and it permeated all the way down to the front line. Everybody looks up now in the NHS. Nobody looks out at the patient. Everybody looks up all the way up to the top, Department of Health to Downing Street, and that's crushed the culture of care. We've got the biggest bully, the chief executive of the NHS.
Well, we've been there before.
We have.
But let me ask Clywd about looking up. That does seem odd, because nurses should be looking across at the patient, not up at the way in which her or his organisation is run.
Yeah. John, since I first raised this matter in December, I've had over 1,000 emails and letters from people all over the country. It's not just Stafford, it's all over England, all over Scotland, all over Wales, and in Northern Ireland as well. And we've listed some of the main concerns. And they do mention nursing, a lot of people mention nursing. They ask, where the compassion went. And they blame, the new system of sending people to university before they actually work on the wards, that people should start on the wards and then go on to further education, but not go on to further education and not work on the wards.
Well, let's put that to you. I mean, is that what is killing compassion?
There's a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, about the graduate nurse, and it's actually a programme that is a graduate. You become a graduate at the end of it, so you don't have a degree first, and 50%, at least 50% of the time is spent in clinical practice. That is the regulation, that's what happens. So I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding. I think things have changed. It's really important. It's very strange that for suddenly better education, better understanding of the role is a problem. Actually, we believe you need both the better education, but absolutely fundamental, the roots of nursing is in compassion and care.
But
50%
this
of the
is
time in
interesting. A lot of people won't know that the nurses are educated, as it were, on the job, that they don't come to the job already qualified to be nurses.
And in fact, one of the things
how is that?
And one of the things that the college did, recognising that was a problem, we actually asked Lord Willis to undertake a commission to look at pre-registration nurse education. He's reported on that. What he's shown is that good level of education, actually these people coming out are some of the most compassionate. They're raising standards, but actually sometimes what happens is they come out with those great values, but the system grinds them down. If you're working, looking after 9 older people, we hear this every day, 9 older people to 1 nurse. Really shocking staffing levels. Not only at the end of the day you are physically exhausted, you're emotionally exhausted,
right.
And your values are being challenged all the time.
Take us to the ward where your mother was. I mean, did you find no compassion? Was there nobody who would say, intervene at some point and say, come on, how are you? And no?
The ward was desperately short of staff. We heard that at the public inquiry. I would say 60% of the nurses on that ward shouldn't have been on there. They didn't want to care for the patients. They were what they'd say, too posh to wash. 40% of the staff on there were absolute angels and just ran around trying to meet the needs of the patient as best as they could.
This is an awful picture for you to have to intervene now and come up with solutions rather fast as to how that culture can be addressed.
I'm going to be looking, obviously, at how people complain, how their complaints are dealt with, who they complain to. I mean, one of the questions I would ask is, how do you know who's in charge anymore? It's not possible. I mean, I think I know quite a bit about hospitals, but having spent quite a bit of time there in October, I didn't know who was who. People used to have uniforms of a particular colour.
So you want matron back?
They had. Some people do. I'm not in a position to argue that one way or another, but some people do argue that. They want somebody who's clearly accountable, who you can go to, make a complaint, get that complaint addressed, and make a complaint. Maybe if you're a whistleblower, I mean, there's a lot of would-be whistleblowers have been bullied out of whistleblowing. And I think that is a shame, because people should be able to report something they've seen, something they're concerned about.
Well, in a word, do you think today will provoke change?
I hope it will. I'm sure it will. And I think many of those recommendations are to be really welcomed.
Thank you very much indeed, Janet Davies, Julie Bailey, and your wonderful campaign, and Anne Clywd. Thank you.